Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos Tov L'Hodos L'Hashem. It is good to give thanks to Hashem. So I want to ask a question here. This is a question, the kind of question that you never lose by asking this question, provided that you look for the honest answer and use all your effort to do so. And the question I want to ask is, why? Why is it good to give thanks to Hashem? What's good about it? And to give you a sense, where we're headed with this, where this is going to take us, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the word toiv in the Shabbos Mizmor is of tremendous significance. That's because there's a lot of water under the bridge regarding toiv by the time we get to Shabbos. There's Vayalakim ki toiv, repeatedly, and of course culminating in Vayalakim is Kol HaShas Avnei Toiv Ma'od. And then on the sixth day, there's also Ra, because there's the tree, knowledge of Toiv and Ra. So there's a question of Toiv and Ra, and this is the ultimate question of everything. First question, the main, most important question, is, are things Toiv? Or are they Ra? And Bereshis Perek Aleph insists that everything is Toiv. Bereshis Perek Beis, where there's a tree and a sin and a snake, introduces Ra. So I want to tell you in a nutshell what Toiv L'Hodos is asserting, what this has to do with Shabbos, this idea that it's good to thank Hashem, and seriously, what kavan you should have when you say Mizmor Shli Yom Shabbos Toiv L'Hodos Hashem. And here's the idea, basically. Let's think about it. Is the world Toiv or is the world Ra? Well, there's a contradiction, right? Because Hashem created a world that's Toiv. But human beings clearly have a capacity for Ra. And don't take my word for it. It says so explicitly in Bereshis. Vayar Hashem ki rabba ru'asa adam ba'aretz. Parak Vav Pasuk Hey, I believe. Hashem saw that man's evil was great. So Hashem sees that everything is Toiv, but then after man mixes in, there's evil too. So apparently we have an approach here, which is that the world is Toiv inherently, and that's a key word we have to think about. What does inherently mean? It's inherently Toiv, but man has the unique ability to mess it up and to make it, or to introduce Ra. So now we have a question, and what that means is there's a world without man. Okay, stripping out man from the world for a moment. Now, what gives us the right to do that? We'll talk about that soon. Strip out man from the world, and his tendency or his ability to introduce all sorts of strange notions, man-made notions, which are incomplete and incorrect and detrimental. Strip out man for a moment, and everything is Toiv. Everything is good. Now I know you want a definition of Toiv. I also do. We're not going into that now. That's one of the most vexing questions. What does it mean that everything is Toiv? Okay? I'm appealing out to your basic sense of Toiv. Not a very exact definition. The world with man stripped out is Toiv. The thing is like this. The thing is that man is part of the world, is he not? And I mean to say is like this: human beings can come up with all sorts of ideas, and if they understand the world correctly, let's say as it is, the world that's not including their own dimyanis, not including their own fantasies and imaginary realities, but the world as it is. If the human being understands the world as it is truly, and he lives in a way that's consistent with the rest of reality, then he will only generate taiv, because the rest of reality is taiv. But since human beings have this ability to see things as they wish, even when it's inconsistent with the rest of reality, now that means they have the possibility of introducing evil. So now I have a question: is the world good or is the world evil? And Shabbos, which of course is about perfection, about the fact that God completed his work, and that therefore the world is in fact perfect, the Shabbos idea is actually fundamentally in doubt. The idea of perfection is fundamentally in question, because how can you say the world is perfect if there are human beings who are part of the world? And a human being is unpredictable. A human being can do anything, right? You could say, okay, the world is taiv because lions are taiv, and trees are taiv, and zebras are taiv, and plants are taiv, and fish are taiv, and planets are taiv, and galaxies are taiv, and the sun is good, the moon is good, and everything is good. But how can you say a human is good? You can't. Because the human has what we call free will, or you can say the human is unpredictable and can do anything. He can have his own ideas. That's the problem, and that problem of the human being independent of the world, standing on his own, and yet still being part of the world and affecting it, is what casts a question, puts the whole assertion that the world is good and makes it uncertain, puts it in doubt. And here's where Taiv L'Haidas Hashem comes in, because if a person thanks Hashem, when a person thanks Hashem, what is he doing? It's a very strange thing to do, to thank Hashem, because what it means is that the person, there's the one doing the thanking, the I, thank you, Hashem. Thanking means that a person recognizes that his self, his identity, is generated by something external to his identity, right? I thank Hashem for giving me X. I thank Hashem for creating me. The act of acknowledgement, the thanking, the hoida'ah, which means both to thank and to confess and to acknowledge. It's an acknowledgement that the I is secondary to what generated the I, the self. And what that forces you to do is to say, well, what am I? Or what should I be? Because if you recognize that you are generated by something outside of yourself, then you understand that your tafkid, your role, is to emulate or to complete or to continue the process that generated you. So the act of Haidah, the act of thanking, is an act of stripping out the self, but specifically stripping out the ability of the self to self-determinate and do whatever it so pleases. Which means the following, simply. If man is that which can do whatever he pleases, which in a certain sense he is, and if that's how man sees himself and that's how man acts, then the world is inherently not taiv. There's ra in it. The way to secure the taiv, the way to secure the good of the world, the inherent good, is if man seeks for what is inherent in it. Now this is an anti-liberal left-wing statement here, because the essence of whatever you want, label you want to give it, which we're so familiar with today, is that people can determine themselves. And everything is about self-expression. Now, given that human beings have the ability to do any self-expression that they wish, if that would be how we would approach reality, then the world would not be taiv. The world would not be good, because it's whatever people make it to be. The only way to secure the taiv is for people to be maida, to people to thank. Because when they thank Hashem, what they're saying is, we are recipients, we are derivative of something else. And then, although we have the possibility of doing what we want, if we recognize that we are derivative of something else and that we owe our existence to something else, then we have a guide and we have an inspiration of how to be and how to act. And that's what preserves and secures that we will in fact act in a way that's taiv. So taiv l'haydis Hashem, it is good to thank Hashem means thanking Hashem is what secures the goodness. It's the most important act that we do all the time, and now we have to start thinking about what it means. The act of thanking Hashem is, in a certain sense, figuratively you could say, it's giving the world back to Hashem. Instead of taking it and saying, I own it and I can do with it as I please, if I recognize it as a gift, what that means is I'm recognizing that there's something out there that I have to look to for guidance, and to which my own ideas are really secondary, and to which, if my ideas should be true, and if I should be true, I need to look at that, I need to look to that for guidance of what is right. And once you do that, once you start doing that, that's how you preserve the goodness, and that's how human beings are guaranteed to ultimately contribute and complete the goodness of reality. That step, l'hoidis, the step of thanking, the step of looking outside of yourself and saying, I'm not part of the system. I am secondary to the system. In fact, I can look at the system and say, look, this was given to me. This was generated by something outside of myself, something with sense. It's not arbitrary. You don't thank an arbitrary thing. You thank something that has an agenda, has a purpose. So the recognition that inheres in thanking is that there is purpose. And that purpose is not self-generated in your mind, it's generated by the mind of Hashem. And once you recognize that, you're on the path to emulating and securing the good. And I might humbly suggest that the expression good Shabbos is based on this idea, that Shabbos is what secures that taiv, that goodness that we proclaim when we usher in the Shabbos and declare how good it is to give thanks to Hashem.